find interesting as I was looking into this. So the tallest obelisk that's still standing in Egypt was actually erected by Hatshepsut, I think is how you say her name, and that was the woman that raised Moses at the Temple of
Really?
Karnak. Yeah, the Temple of Karnak, one of the obelisks still stands. They moved a lot of those um, obelisks when they were conquered over to like Greece and Rome, and around the world. There's an Egyptian obelisk in I think it's I think it's Central Park in New York, somewhere in New York. Um, but those things I find fascinating. And then it's also interesting too that Moses, because like the one of the biggest temples in the world is the Karnak temple in Egypt, and that's actually where Moses was raised. And Moses was raised as, the next up and coming Pharaoh, and he left it to be a Hebrew. Like he saw the false worship that was happening. Like this was his reality. He was living in it. And I find it interesting to think of, he was being offered so much, but he knew somewhere in there the difference between the true God and the other thing. And then also in the plagues, the 10 plagues, the magicians had power. They were able
They
to
did.
mimic some of God's plagues, and the thing is like I always kind of thought in like false worship, people are probably just worship like like I used to worship money and I used to worship things that were like hollow, but I wasn't like out worshiping like I wasn't worshiping money with like some kind of witchcraft, like I didn't necessarily think that like there's a difference between like worshiping a god like a false god who is like Satan, right? Like you're worshiping Satan or a fallen angel that you believe can give you power, and you don't understand that Satan, it's vanity, because Satan is a creation of God. The angels were created by God. They are a creation of God. They have power. And if you go and you worship, like if an angel comes to you and tells you, believe me, a fallen angel, believe me, I can give you this, I can help you, give me your worship, increase my power, and then I can bestow the increased power you have back on you. But the lie is that a fallen angel or Satan, that whole realm, they're not God. They can't give you life. And this whole thing that Satan is trying to like resurrect himself and mimic Jesus Christ and come back and outshine the God of heaven and still claim, like from what I'm gathering is like Satan's giving a promise that God's going to not follow through on, because so far the only person that has endured this the second death, the full separation from God, like eternal separation from God, is Jesus Christ. And because Jesus Christ lived a sinless life, and because Jesus Christ is God, he was able to survive the separation from God in Gethsemane and on the cross. That is why Jesus Christ is the only one. He's the only begotten. He's the only one that could free us. But outside of that, there's no angel that has suffered eternal death yet. There's no human. There's nothing that has actually suffered the second death. No one could survive it. The only one that could survive it is Jesus Christ, God himself. And praise Jesus for being that for us. But Satan is giving this lie, ye shall not surely die, and then also worship me and give me God the power that rightfully belongs to God, and we can take out God. You can be your own God. You don't need God. Everything goes back to the lies of Satan, the same lies that he told the angels in heaven, the same lies he told Adam and Eve in Eden. And but this is vanity, worshiping like Satan. There might be some power in some of these dark systems, like some of this worship, like there's actual supernatural power that comes from this worship, from having some of the olden day Egyptian worship, like where someone was actually a representative Pharaoh. I think they had some powers. Like when Moses and God went to Pharaoh and were like, let my people go. And he's like, who is God that I should serve you? Then, because the Pharaohs believed that they were God, right? Like they literally believed it, and they had some power. The magicians prove and show that they had some supernatural powers. but they're not God. And so same thing in this modern time. Like, you look at the powers around the world, you look at these things, and they do accumulate power, and part of that comes from selfishness, because they're willing to take and mass and hoard from others for selfish gain, which is not God's way. But the thing is like, these modern these worship systems still come down to the fact that people don't understand who God is and what the difference is between a false God, even if it is something that is real, a fallen angel in disguise that can give you some power. Satan is destruction, and he isn't God. He can't give you life. All he can give you is death and destruction. And that's the lie that the world is wrapped in. And God is the only freedom and protection from the destructive outcome of believing a lie and separating yourself from the very source of life. I've come to realize that God is love, and just like our blood, life circulates. Anything that is going to be alive needs circulation. God is love, and from his love, life circulates. As soon as we cut ourselves off from the circulation of life, we begin to die. And when we believe a lie, it severs that circulation, that flow of love and life that comes from God. And then we start to die.